Welcome to Becoming Parents Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Campbell, mom of 18 and executive director of the Doula Co-op of Nevada. With more than 15 years in birth work, I've had the privilege of walking beside families through life's transitions. My work centers on connection, community, and amplifying voices that too often go unheard. Each of these episodes is an honest conversation about the messy, beautiful, and transformative experiences that shape us as parents and as people. I'd like to extend a heartfelt thank you to the incredible guests who show up with courage and authenticity to share their stories with us. Let's dive right in. Welcome to Becoming Parents. Today I have with me Dr. Clay Brigance. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Jennifer. Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's
Good.
like summertime and sunshiny. I'm in Reno, Nevada. I don't know where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. St. Louis, so same thing.
Yeah, I
Same
mean,
thing. Yeah.
I don't like winter. I don't like cold. I don't like snow. I tolerate it. And then like I don't have sad or anything. My husband and I just
Yeah.
had a conversation about that. But I'm just like I'm not the best version of myself. And now I'm like, if I lived in the days of sun gods, I would be so down with that. Like I would be on
Mm.
board with the god of the sun. Anyway.
Well,
So
don't
I'm
come to St. Louis. It gets really cold. It
yeah,
gets
I
really
know.
cold
I
in the
know.
winter.
I'm
It
originally from
snows.
New England. We don't like this. We don't.
Yeah.
I'm not coming to
Yeah.
visit you in the winter. Definitely.
That's fair. That's fair.
You're a doctor, and I want to
Mm.
like shout that out. I'm very proud
Mm.
of the work you're doing. So I want to preface our podcast by talking about that because it's not on your little name tag. And I
Mm.
want you to jump in and share your parenting journey with us.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Jennifer. Um, Gosh, before we started recording, you had said like, man, let's start from the beginning and like really how much you love going through people's story and everything. And I resonate that with so much. And I'm feeling right now in this moment what probably a lot of your guests are feeling of like, well, gosh, it's so complicated and intricate. And I think that my wife and I, we've been telling our story so much um, that we kind of know a rhythm.
Yeah.
So, it really, I think that my story goes all the way back to when I was a kid and how so I grew up in Kentucky. I grew up in Western Kentucky, Muhlenberg County, little tiny place, in Western Kentucky. And, my dad was Superman and, just self-made man, business owner. He's an entrepreneur. He, invests in properties. He was a construction worker, all these things. And he's 6'3", and he's got big hands, big guy. And, I grew up to be 5'8" and 120 pounds soaking wet. So like, you know, I started to compare myself and I thought, man, that's the kind of masculinity I want to have. This strong, silent, um, but nose to the grindstone, providing for his family, but having a family. So even from when I was a kid, Jennifer, I knew that I wanted to be a dad, and so I shaped my career around that. So I wanted to go into mental health, so I went into school psychology, which is where you do
Mhm.
like assessments for kids in the public schools to see if they have special needs or any type of diagnosis that they would need treatment for. So, but I wanted to do that, Jennifer, because I wanted summers off. I wanted a pension. I wanted predictability. I wanted that ability to be a dad. So whenever my wife and I started struggling with infertility in 2017, that really all unraveled. And it was this spiral for me of, well, then who am I as a
Mhm.
man? Who am I as a husband if I can't provide my wife a child? If I can't have a child myself? And I can remember talking to my therapist at the time. My brother's older than me, which, by the way, Jennifer, my brother, I hope he's listening to this. He doesn't really listen to podcasts, but I hope he's listening to this some way, somehow. He's an incredible man, but he also looks a lot like my dad and built like my dad. And so I had this image, Jennifer, that he's the more masculine one. Maybe he's the one that's meant to carry on our legacy, our family name, and not me. So it was this spiral of shame that I went into. And like I said on another podcast recently, Jennifer, is like this like unraveling of who I am and who I thought I was. And also that got built back up again. And so I had to find what my masculinity means for me and what I bring to the table and know that I'm not going to be a blue collar guy that, is maybe more traditional in that sense, but I've got my own ways of being masculine. And so we went through IVF. So we went through all the treatments and everything. Um, and eventually, through a lot of loss and pain and waiting, we got Jonah, our firstborn. So Jonah was born in 2019, and I knew then, Jennifer, that um, I wanted to go back to school to get a PhD so that I can figure out this why were my wife and I so much more in love now after infertility than we had ever been? Why was our marriage better?
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, and this was a part of my whole like reconstruction, I think. Like, how can I figure out this why? What were my wife and I doing that brought us together? And what are the things that couples do that drive them apart during this process? And then give it back to the world. Like you're talking about, you talk
Yeah.
to a lot of entrepreneurs that like to give back, and I think that was my moment. And so um, yeah, and so that's when I went back to school and I got a PhD in counseling and started producing research. And I've got a book coming out published by the American
Saw that. I'm
Psychological.
glad you brought
Yeah,
it up. Yes, yes, yes.
yeah, yeah. So that's it's due on Sunday. So no
No
panic,
pressure.
but
No pressure, everybody.
yeah, no pressure. But yeah, the final version is going back to APA on Sunday. So that's going to be the guidebook for how do we as therapists guide couples through this process of how infertility can maybe steal your dream of becoming a parent, but it doesn't have to steal your relationship. Um,
Holy
so,
cow. So I went through infertility.
oh, wow.
It's really fascinating
Wow.
by this. So
Yeah.
I went through about 10 months of all the day surgeries, like flush
Oh,
your
yeah.
tubes, take right. And I was maxed out on 250 milligrams of Clomid, and I was maxed out on Provera. And I hit the point where the infertility doctor said, IVF is next. And I said, nope. Now I was also
Yeah.
20 and I
Hmm.
had started this, I had my first daughter when I was 21. I was married at 19. Crazy, crazy stuff. Wouldn't recommend to most people, but just so young, just really, really.
Yeah. Sure.
But it was the plan to get pregnant. And after a year of nothing, no
Mm.
pregnancies, no miscarriages, nothing, I went into infertility. We wanted to have kids. So I knew that wasn't my path, and I'm glad I did. And for couples who continue on through IVF, I mean, bless you, because I
Mm.
just was done. I was
Yeah.
tapped out.
Yeah.
And in weaning me off of the medication and doing my blood work, he was this little Asian guy. I'm like almost 5'9". So
Hmm.
we're twins. And this little Asian guy comes in who was super quiet and introverted, and he hugged me, and it was very not characteristic. And he said, we've done
Mm.
all your blood work. I don't know how this happened, but you're pregnant off of the cycle that we forced your body on. I don't
Wow.
know if you'll
Wow.
ever get pregnant again. And I knew I would never walk into a fertility specialist's office again. Um,
Hmm.
I bring this up for a specific reason I'll get to. And he said, expect to have a really rough pregnancy and
Mm.
you have a higher rate of miscarriage. It's so fascinating because they don't know so much about all of women's health and hormones,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
there were things that were said to me where I was like, where did that come from? But I'm thankful that it did, because I was able to get pregnant 7 times. I lost
Oh.
3 pregnancies, 4 babies and 3 pregnancies. And the last one was
Mm.
twins at 16 weeks and a hysterectomy at 33. So definitely my body ran the gamut. But I delivered 4 times. And when I had that hysterectomy, the doctor was like, I don't know how you got pregnant and maintained pregnancies. I don't know what he saw to make him say that to me, but I felt very blessed that I had had those 4. And I had very rough pregnancies. Um,
Mm.
Miscarriages weren't as challenging because he said that to me. He said, you have a higher
Mm.
rate of miscarriage. So, like in my mind, but here's the question from somebody going through infertility: why
Right.
did you not assign a therapist to couples going through it? Because holy how, when you
Yeah.
walk in that door, starting this process,
Hmm.
already feeling like you mentioned shame, fear, guilt, failure, like,
Hmm.
that your body doesn't function. I got had my hysterectomy and I'm like, what about me makes me a woman? I
Yeah.
I don't have a uterus or a cervix, and I had breast
Mm.
augmentation. Nothing female about me is real. It's gone. Like, and that was later at 33. So I
Hmm.
started this at 20. So you're talking about years of feeling inadequate. And
Yeah.
why do they not? I mean, I know you can't answer that, it's rhetorical, but you
Mm.
went through this process enough to completely change the trajectory of your job. And
Yeah.
then what happens, like you said, we had our first baby in 2019. We're the lucky ones. We're the ones that
Mm.
have the positive, like no matter what you've gone through, we
Mm.
had the positive result. And so it's challenging for me to look at people. There are infertility doulas, which I never got into, but I did get into
Mm.
adoption, surrogacy, and bereavement because those were very painful for me. And I wanted to
Yeah.
help people. You went in a different direction because of that.
Mm.
I think every couple going through infertility, you do not realize how much of a train wreck it is, how hard it is
Mhm.
physically and emotionally, how much
Yep.
it, I mean, just being on Clomid, I felt like somebody had taken over my body or dropped me.
Yeah.
Like I felt like a psycho and I had no control. And I'd slam a cabinet door and then be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like I don't
Mm.
even understand who I am anymore. There are
Mm.
all these crazy things that you go through. And I didn't even do the shots and the in vitro, the path that you guys took.
Mm.
You kept going, right?
Right. Right.
Um, and that marriage did end in divorce. And was it because of that? Well, that was at least a big drop in the bucket. Was it the
Mhm.
only thing? Probably not. But were we prepared, especially at our age? Are people prepared going through this, regardless of age? No,
Mm.
they're
Right.
not. So,
Right.
I mean, so many stories like that, right? Of people who just like, yeah, I had my first daughter, and by the time she was a year old, I was a single mom. That
Mm.
was not the plan,
Mm. Mhm.
right?
Right.
So
Right.
I really, really want you to dive in. I think maybe touch on how therapy could have or did help, because you mentioned you had a therapist
Mhm.
during the infertility process, like how vital that is. And then how
Mhm.
in the world did you guys have a better relationship? Because
Yeah.
holy cow, nothing in that situation made anything in my life better, except that I got a child in the end, right?
Mm. Mhm. Oh yeah. Yeah. There's a lot to unpack
A
there.
lot to
There's,
unpack there, right?
yeah. No, no, no. That's good. I'm here for it.
Derailing.
I am here for it. I'm here for it, Jennifer, for sure. So yeah, I think I'll start with talking about therapy during infertility, but also, I think a lot of your listeners too are parents and they're navigating the journey of parenthood and all of that too. And it's very adjacent to the infertility experience. Um,
Right.
I think that people should have a therapist for the infertility experience and also when they become a parent for the first time, because that changes everything. You go from being completely, independent to now being having somebody dependent on you. And also you love them and you're feeling and experiencing this love and also expectations for yourself and that are not always helpful.
We
And
haven't even touched that. And then
yeah,
like, and then you become a parent.
yep, yeah, exactly, exactly. Um, so yeah, I started therapy with somebody new, a gentleman who's just an incredible guy, and he and his wife are going through IVF, and he said, I need somebody to process this with. He said, but also if this works, if we have a baby, I'm going to need somebody to help me with that. So, um,
Basically just get one and keep them forever.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no.
Um, and a secret too, Jennifer, is that every therapist has a therapist, you know.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay.
but because yeah, what does it say about how we see our work if we don't access it too,
Yeah.
for ourselves? But going back to your question, should somebody be there to walk with you through that, through the infertility experience? 100%. And I think that more and more fertility clinics are coming on board to the idea that mental health is having a huge impact on people's lives as they navigate trying to become a parent. On my podcast, Love and Infertility, my wife and I interviewed our fertility doctor, and I'm really excited for that episode that's coming out in a couple of weeks. But she is incredible, and she talks about how people are just now, this is 2026, Jennifer, and like OBs and fertility doctors are just now coming on board to, oh wow, like this is a holistic impact, that infertility is having on somebody, and it's not just having a baby. There's all these other, it's not just like for me, it wasn't just having Jonah and Isaac, our two boys, but it was about me becoming a father and my wife becoming a mother, and um and these identity shifts that we desire for ourselves, but also maybe don't get in the way that we think will happen. Um, so yeah, 100%. I think that on if that's something that people want to access, then I wish it could be more available for folks,
Me
for
too. And I
sure.
just think the suggestion, like no one even suggested
Mm,
that, that
right.
because like I don't know what this medication's going to do. I don't know how these day surgeries or the IVF or the shots or like all, I
Mhm.
don't know how it's going to impact me physically, first of all, which is huge. And
Right.
then emotionally, I'm not, there's nothing that prepares you. You're just kind of like a cog in the wheel, you're just like, here I am, put me on the conveyor belt of standard of care of the things that I need to do to check the boxes,
Mhm.
not even factoring in how you feel going into infertility and then how you feel going through it. And then, yeah, I mean, how dare you ever struggle being a parent when it took you so much to become one,
Ooh,
right?
yeah. Yeah. That's why postpartum anxiety and postpartum depression is so common when we go
Mm-hmm.
through infertility and we have a baby. I went through that. That
Yeah,
postpartum anxiety was so because I thought that, oh, I don't have a right to be anxious I don't have a right to be sad that I haven't slept in 2 days or whatever. I don't have a right to complain. It's like my grandmother used to say, don't pray for
patient.
rain.
Oh,
What's that?
don't pray for patience.
Oh,
You
yeah,
get
that too.
trial. That's what my grandmother said.
Yeah, yeah,
Don't
but
pray
yeah,
for
oh my
rain.
goodness. Yeah, but yeah, don't pray for rain and complain about the mud.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
um,
kind of, but still, I mean, toddlers are little terrorists.
they are, and it's so hard.
Like them.
Yeah, and that's why that postpartum depression and anxiety is so common is because we
Right,
stuff it down and then we don't have the ability to process it, and so yeah, and through it all, just to circle all the way back to your question of how do couples come together through
right.
that. My research, I've studied about 1,000 couples going through this, served hundreds in therapy, and I have found that there are
Okay.
four
Killer.
things that really determine whether or not couples get on board together or jump ship through that process. The first one is what we call mindful attunement. So attunement, Jennifer, is just feeling like my partner gets me and gets my internal world and cares for me, and I get them and know them and their hopes and dreams and fears and all of that. The mindful piece is all about slowing down and hearing your emotions, validating them, showing care without being reactive, without being defensive. Um, it's interesting that one of the best predictors of connection through infertility, I did a study 2 years ago, and one of the best predictors in this sample size was humility. So just setting my ego aside and not being defensive and showing care and giving olive branches back and forth because you never have connection with your partner when you're right. you know um, the temptation to want to be right is there, um, but whenever we lose together, that's when we can have a mindful attunement back and forth. The
Mhm.
second thing is navigating the conflict that comes up, the decisional conflict of, do we do adoption? Do we not do adoption? How do we pay for treatment? Who do we tell? Who do we not tell? Um, all of these really just difficult decisions. And, so many couples that I serve in therapy have decision fatigue because it's just
Yeah,
one thing after another. And a part of that is navigating your heightened conflict. When you had mentioned like you had slammed a cabinet door and you were like, well, who is this person?
right.
We change so much through that process. And so just being able to take our conflict and turning it from a 10 down to a 6. Um, the third one is uncovering what are our dreams for parenthood and why are they there, and doing it together. Why do you want to become a mom? Where does that come from for you? Here's why I want to be a dad, and here's my thoughts around that, or here are my values or my passions or whatever. Because really, a good couple connection is about taking what the hell is that and turning it into, hey, what's that? What's behind that for you? Um, if I were to see you slam that cabinet door instead of saying, "Whoa, what the hell? What are you doing?" It's, "Hey, what's going on? What's going on?" And then you could say, "Well, I feel like I'm about to crawl out of my body," you
Yeah.
know. Um, and then the last one, Jennifer, is just you got to keep the bedroom alive. You got
Yeah.
to keep good
That's
sex
so
alive.
hard. I mean, I
Yeah,
remember basal body temperature every morning and my little piece of paper that was on my nightstand, and have sex every other day. And the thing that was like dessert in the relationship, right? The best part, the
right.
thing that only this person and I are experiencing, regardless how great you have friends outside of this relationship. Like this intimacy is what makes it really, really separate from all
Yep.
other relationships, one of the things. And
Right.
having that feel like a chore,
Mm,
like and I remember feeling that way, like we need to have sex today because it's an every other day thing. We don't want your sperm
right.
count too low or too high, and we need to be
Right.
consistent, and I need to write it down on my freaking chart. And there was nothing fun. I mean, it was the most fun because we met in college when things are always fun, and got married, and like
Yeah.
it was a big part of our relationship, the sexual part of it. And when it became a chore, like that is the worst feeling, that
Mm,
like this best, most fun part of your relationship is now a chore that you have to check
right.
off this box. So
Yeah.
I agree with all of that. And I don't think couples are in, like, I was not introspective. I'm guessing other people are not, like, what am I feeling when I slam that cabinet door? I
Right.
don't maybe have control over the hormones that are massively flooding my body,
Oh, for
and
sure.
at least vocalize. It was literally like I was need crawling out of my skin. Like I just
Mhm.
felt like someone had put my personality in a foreign body, and I didn't really like the body that much. It was terrible. I didn't like it. Uh,
Yeah.
all of those things. I mean, the battle is because there are all these physical, like legitimately physical things happening to a woman's body.
Mm,
And as a side result, are creating some of the emotional parts of it, just hormones in general, that flooding of
mhm.
hormones. And then the those feelings of fear and guilt and shame, and that were there before, that are still there, that you have, that I have, that we're not talking about, that we're not even
Right.
putting a name and a face to. We're not even recognizing that this is playing in the background constantly.
Mm,
um
mhm.
so hard for these couples, so hard to go through. So I love that you did the study, and that you realize. I'm surprised by humility, and I don't know why I'm surprised by that.
Mm,
I don't know what you were going to say. Didn't even
yeah.
know you were going to say it, but I also found myself surprised, like, really? And the
Mm,
first thought I had was, that's it? That's like, that's what we're missing? Like,
yeah.
now it has a face and a name. Oh, well, I can work on that. I can work on those
Mhm.
conversations, right?
Mhm.
So what are some of the top things that come up with you in your personal experience and with
Mhm.
other couples? Because there's got to be like constant threads happening. Sex, I'm sure, is one of them.
Yep.
Right? It's a chore.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. I think another big one is when we just have different ways of seeing how emotions play out. Um, when I'm working with a husband and a wife that are just struggling to get pregnant, um, I'm it's not this is not Clay trying to be stereotypical. This is just what I see in the therapy space,
Right.
that the wife is very emotive and expressive with her emotions, and husband is just stoic and stone-faced. And she is like, "What are you feeling? I just want to know what you're feeling. I feel so distant from you." And he's like, "I just want to be here to support you." And This what my research shows is what we call well-intended chivalry, which is where men push down their own emotions and their own wishes, hopes, everything, so that they can quote unquote be there for my wife to lift up her needs and her emotions. And a lot of men feel like that they don't have a right to speak up because it's not, they're not enduring the shots and the medications, and so they feel like it's almost like a way of like punishing themselves, like they'll just like push down their own emotions. But also they don't want to be a burden to their wives, which is um, ironic because their wives are like, no, this is not a burden. This is a way for me to feel connected to you.
Right.
Um, and so it's this talking, not talking, but um, almost like living past each other, you know,
Yeah.
that I see quite a bit. So one of the first things that I do, Jennifer, is help couples just start talking about what they're feeling, and being able to be mindful about it, being able to hold two realities, two truths at the same time. Your hope doesn't have to rule out my fear, and my fear doesn't have to extinguish your hope. We can be
Mm.
curious about it, and um, that's when we can start to help each other to feel seen. That's very different from being seen or being heard. Having this subjective experience that I am being listened to and I am being cared about. Um, I think that is a huge, huge dynamic that I see quite a bit. Um, and then once we do that, then it's like no matter what comes your way, we
Yeah.
can handle it, in our relationship.
It would have been a relief to have heard the male perspective. I love having men on the podcast because I feel like that perspective is one, just not heard very often, and two,
Right.
can be different than we expect it to be, or more intense than we anticipate. And I would have felt less alone
Mm,
in my emotion if
mm,
I had had that, if you had said to me, this is how I'm feeling going through. So I get the stoic, it's
yeah.
like your dad or your older brother, right?
Right. Right.
Masculine, like, oh, they want to caveman it. And we kind of, I mean, we put a lot of, I think men and women put a lot of pressure on those ideals of what masculinity means. And yes, she is going through it and all of those things, but
Mhm.
it's very isolating. Infertility,
Yeah.
miscarriage, loss, like those things can be very isolating for a woman
Mm,
and immediately emotional. There's a stat I'd love for your feedback on this. When a
mm,
woman experiences a miscarriage, like immediately, not only does she have the physical hormones and all that stuff, but like immediately she feels the loss and the
yeah.
shame, the regret, and all of that. Men on
Right.
average don't feel that for about 18 months. And I think that's because they
Yeah.
don't allow it. They don't allow
Yeah.
that to happen. Okay. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, right. We're talking about
Mm-hmm.
the same situation. So it isn't that you are not feeling those things, it's that you are holding them off so until you
Right.
have a safe chance to do it. And why can't we create that now in the same moment?
Right, right. And
Okay.
that's one of the biggest things that my wife Marjorie and I did that
Okay.
that I noticed was a big turning point whenever I stopped trying to rescue her out of her pain
Mhm.
and instead just validated it. I called it, like holding wet soap. Like I was trying to like grab, her emotions and be like, don't feel that. No, that's horrible. Like, here's my love of my life, the love of my life. Like
Yeah.
crying and sobbing and having panic attacks, and I'm just desperate to try to save her from that, but I can't. The best thing that I can do is hold the soap gently, and just validate it and say, you know what, this sucks, and gosh, I'm feeling pretty overwhelmed too, and I'm here for you, and I love you. Um,
Yeah.
and
It. I like to fix it. I'm a fixer. I like to fix
yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
and sometimes you just can't. You just have to be. You just have to,
Right.
there's no way past it but through, or
Mhm.
that sort of thing. And it's going to be hard,
Yeah.
so I love that through your therapy model, you're allowing people to also just accept that they're experiencing it, whatever it is.
Hmm.
I don't think often we give ourselves or each other permission, and you're doing that for men specifically too,
Hmm. Hmm. Yep.
like just being told like, hey, it's okay to feel this way. I understand why, and you should and you can. And there's getting through it too, because
Right.
we don't give ourselves permission.
Mm-mm. No. It, and there's so much shame behind that. There's so much shame and being, for men at least, there's a lot of weakness. Um,
Yeah.
you know, the the little boy that's quote unquote overly emotive is the boy that gets picked on, and that's how masculinity works. And a lot of times, and when men get together in groups, when they first get to know each other, there's like a jockeying for power.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like there's like we try to one up each other. Who's
The
the
bigger
alpha
fish
male?
stories. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, just little subtle things. Um, but just recognizing that dynamic is there can be really powerful for men. Whenever I realize that, you know, um, whatever I'm feeling doesn't determine my worth to my wife. It's actually outside of that. That was pretty powerful, but that took a lot of therapy work. That took a lot of introspection. Um, and eh, there are a lot of guys that are willingly coming to therapy now, though.
Yep.
That are, when I'm saying willingly, I'm not saying like
We
they
dragged
used
them
to
by
be.
the hair previously, but now.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I see a lot of guys who are recognizing that something's not right
Yeah.
and I need to talk about it. And I think it's a beautiful thing, just being able to talk about it. Like you mentioned, Jennifer, you're a problem solver, and that's so fair. My wife is too,
Mm,
um,
we're great.
which is great, you know. And before we get to the problem solving, um, in our couple relationships, it's good to know the why.
Mm,
Why do you feel like that this problem exists? Why do you have this position on this problem, et cetera, et cetera?
yeah.
That can really help our connection. So, yeah.
I think, I mean, it's incredible because this is fertility rates are going up. So
Mhm.
infertility is more common. I think it's
Right.
also some things, even if they're not more common, they're more spoken about. So I think there's a combination happening, but definitely infertility rates have gone up. People becoming parents at older ages, I think, is
Right.
also on the rise, which I mean, I'm 55. So when I was 2021, I was in that Gen X where a lot of us had kids young. It was not uncommon.
Hmm.
I definitely was not the youngest among people I graduated or went to college with. And it wasn't like unplanned and shocking and unwanted. It was
Right.
very different back then. And now I'm seeing people go older and older. And so that can contribute to fertility rates as well. You
Right.
guys got pregnant and had your first baby. So tell me about your IVF experience. And then you have a second son. So I want to
Mhm.
know how that, I mean, I know how that happened, but like, did you have to go back through IVF? Because so many people, the second they start the adoption process, the
Mhm.
second they decide not to do something, they're pregnant, right?
Right.
That whole,
Right.
well, do we emotionally finally relax enough that our bodies felt safe and could get pregnant? I don't know.
Mhm.
Um, or that once you have a pregnancy, like for me, I did not have a problem getting pregnant after that first one. My body was like, oh, we know what to do now. We've got this. We can do it on our own.
Mhm.
So tell me about your experience with IVF.
Yeah. Yeah. So both of our boys are IVF babies, Jonah and Isaac, and they're 6 and 3 now, and they're the best boys. They're so great, and they're stinkers.
Yeah.
Truly, they
Yeah.
are truly stinkers at this age, but they're so great. And um, yeah, so we actually went through male factor infertility. So I grew up in Kentucky. A lot of pesticides, in
Oh
rural
no.
Kentucky, which is, part of the reason why also, you know, I'm very confident that, diet was a part of that. And,
Yep.
there's all kinds of factors that research is coming out, and telling us about our reproductive health. But I remember, Jennifer, whenever they, they being the nurses, came into our exam room and they were just going to run my sperm analysis one more time. And my wife had been in test after test after test, and it was just assumed that she was the quote unquote problem. And so whenever
Always.
then always, yeah. So
100%.
yeah. So whenever the nurses just swung open the door and they were like, "Oh, it looks like it's male factor infertility. Who knew?" You know, you're going, yeah. And it was like they were telling me who won the baseball game today or something, you know. And they were like, "You guys are going to have to go through IVF." I can remember the striped shirt that my wife was wearing, the little K cups over here. I remember the smell of the room. I remember the arrangement of the room. I remember everything because it was like, oh my gosh, this is my fault.
Oh,
And whenever we were walking out to the car, uh, I was looking down at the ground and my wife was like, are you okay? And I was like, don't look at me. Don't look at me. Um, I was just overwhelmed with shame. Um, so we we worked through that. I worked through that. All the things that we have talked about so far in this episode, processing those emotions and just naming them out loud. Um, and we did eventually get pregnant with Jonah, had Jonah, and then we had Isaac 3 years later, another transfer. Um, and after that transfer, or excuse me, after Isaac was born, something wasn't quite right. Marjorie kept bleeding, and she was like, something's not right. And she had an emergency hysterectomy about 2 weeks after Isaac was born. Um,
oh,
and it just really moved me, Jennifer, when you talked about how you didn't feel like, feminine enough, like you had lost a part of your womanhood. And Marjorie, my wife, she's expressed the same thing, that she feels like a part of her womanhood is gone.
mhm.
Um, and so that was a grieving process too. So it's just this roller coaster of this hope and anxiety and shame and now grief and now joy and it's and yeah, it was just a roller coaster. Through that, I went through a lot of postpartum anxiety. My wife went through postpartum depression, and we talked through that. We dialogued about that, and now we have a first grader. So it moves fast.
It moves fast. I mean, my
Yeah.
oldest daughter's 34. I'm
Mm.
not even 34, so I'm not sure how that happened. But yeah,
Yeah, for sure, right? Yeah,
very, I don't understand.
crazy.
Wow. So that was it for you guys as far as unless you did some sort of surrogacy. Did she
Right.
keep her ovaries?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did too. I I know it's like a random side question. It makes a big difference for the women going through a
Yeah, it
hysterectomy.
does.
So
It
I'm always
does.
like, so hard. Holy cow, so hard. Um, and so blessed too,
Mm,
you
yeah.
know?
Yeah. And I think that what I really want your listeners to hear is that we were we were blessed, yes, because we were able to have children, and also I think we were blessed because our marriage survived and thrived.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it infertility takes away so much. It can take away your dream of becoming a parent. It can take away your present living. It can take away um, your finances. It can take away your other relationships, but it doesn't have to steal that intimate partnership that you have with your spouse. So it's, um, but like you had mentioned, Jennifer, you and your ex-husband, there were
Mhm.
things going on before, and that's, like you said, that was infertility was a drop in the bucket, but there were other things going on, and I see that a lot with
Yeah.
couples too, where it's not just infertility. There's other maybe communication
Yep.
issues or
Huge.
yeah. Hmm.
And I think it's easy to not, and this is why I think it's so important. I like so strongly believe that you should have a therapist because you feel like your relationship is on track generally. I mean, when we went
Right.
into infertility, we might have been young, but we had had time together, we had a plan together, we
Hmm.
had a great relationship at the time, so you think. I
Right.
feel like infertility, that process, and it's usually a long process. I mean, it was 10
Definitely.
months, it was a lot of medication.
Hmm.
It's not like you go to the doctor and the next month you're pregnant. That's not usually what happens. It's
Hmm.
really drawn out and emotional, or IVF fails, or a
Right.
million things, right?
Right.
So um the pregnancy loss is really high. I feel like I always say alcohol and money, but I'll add infertility into this. They don't change you, they expose you.
Ooh, I like that. I like
Right?
that.
Because when people are like,
Yeah,
well, I hit her because I had alcohol. You know what? I've been real drunk and never wanted to hit anybody.
for
That's
sure.
you. That's part of who
Yep.
you are that you don't allow to come out. It's just money and alcohol, but also like really stressful situations like infertility. I don't think they do change you. I'm not minimizing or
Right.
putting this into like one bucket. This is the answer. But what they definitely expose what's
Mm,
wrong with your relationship in other areas. Because if your
yep.
communication is not great, if your marriage is not as strong, if there are things that you haven't worked through, even if you didn't recognize you needed to, let me
Mm,
tell you, something like infertility is going to bring that stuff up to the surface, bubbling in
wow.
ways that you do not expect.
Yeah.
And so when I say that there were other issues, yes, there were. I wouldn't have known that. I don't know how long we would have stayed married if I had gotten pregnant naturally, or we hadn't decided to do infertility at that. If we had been like, you know what, we're gonna wait 5 years. Our marriage isn't at this, we're
Right.
young, our marriage isn't ready. Would it would have been significantly different. But had we not worked through that, it would have revealed it.
Mm,
Infertility reveals the things in your marriage that aren't going well because there's no place to hide when you're that raw, when there's
right.
much going on. So I think there are just certain things in life that expose who you are. They reveal who you
Mhm.
are or what's happening in ways that otherwise wouldn't have happened.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That really
Um,
makes sense. And too, it's kind of like it's the X-ray, right? It doesn't have to
yeah.
mean like if you get a broken bone, you don't have to chop the arm off,
Yeah.
It's okay, so IVF, miscarriage, perinatal loss reveals this about
Yeah.
our relationship. What are we going to do about it?
And then what? Right.
Yeah.
If there isn't an and then what?
Hmm.
How you can't, you're not going to work through that.
Right, right. And here is where the humility piece comes into play.
Okay, I
Um,
good. I'm glad you're circling. Yes.
yeah, yeah, because um, if we, let's say my wife and I are looking at this metaphorical X-ray of our relationship, we take a look at it now. We're just both of us are looking at it. We're seeing it for what it is. And then I look at her and I'm just like, look at all the things you got to change, man. You know? Then and that's not going to put us in a good place. But if we look at this and I say, whoa, this is what I'm bringing to the relationship to really make it unhealthy, I'm committed to working on that, full stop. And
Yeah.
because what that's going to do is that's going to, unless, somebody's a narcissist, but usually it's going to be an olive branch to your partner to say the same. We have to lose to win together.
Yeah.
That's why whenever I end a session, especially a really heated session with couples, I invite them to say, okay, now turn and look at each other and tell your partner what you want to work on this week based on what you heard.
Mm.
And don't leave this room until your partner feels like you get it. So um, I think that's the humility piece, I think.
Yeah. Wow. I'm glad that you brought that back around. Tell me, I want to end on some success because you've done a lot of
Mhm,
research and statistics.
mhm.
Throw us something that feels really good in this heavy conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, here's something I have only so I've been doing this work for a while, and this is not me tooting on my horn. This is because I have had the privilege of working with the best couples in the world.
Mm,
I've been doing this for years now. I've only seen three divorces, and which is incredible. Uh, here's the good news. This is the good news I want to give you, Jennifer. I think there's a cultural shift
mhm,
in our country about taking our relationships very seriously early,
mm,
and because I'm seeing more and more couples that are maybe just diagnosed with infertility or just had a miscarriage like a few weeks before, and they're like, "Hey, I think we're doing okay right now, but man, this was a hard thing, and we need to talk about it." So I think that's happening more and more, and that's only helpful. Um, so yeah, and two, if another thing, um, I think it's really, really important to recognize that infertility reveals, which by the way, I'm going to steal that, Jennifer.
Yeah.
I'm going to quote you. I'm going to quote you.
Told
I
me.
hope it's okay.
Yeah.
But uh, it reveals things about your intimate relationship, but also about the relationships with your friends, and with your family. Because there are folks that I shared my infertility journey with other guys, and I did not feel cared for. I didn't feel like it was like, um, if it can I be a little bit vulgar? Is
Yeah,
that
yeah,
okay?
yeah. 100%.
So one of my psych professors at Murray State down in Kentucky, he would say, you know, whenever assignments were getting close to the due date, he would say, "Getting down to the nut cutting." So yeah, he was a farmer too. So yeah, when it gets down to the nut cutting, it's
Yep.
like, who's going to stay with you and who is not going to be able to provide that for you. So I was able to discern that, and through that, I gained some incredibly deep friendships with some other guys,
Mm.
um, feeling like that they have my back, and we have an incredibly deep friendship. So my hope and my prayer for your listeners, if they're going through this, is that they find those people, um, and yeah, and I hope that they're out there for everybody, truly.
Clay, thank you so much for being on. I appreciate you. I love your story.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you, Jennifer. Thanks for having me.